There were 3 questions I had about the Rockets, and I think most people going into the playoffs. Is James Harden going to be clutch and play better in the postseason or as well as he did in the regular season? Because he hadn't done that historically. Is Chris Paul going to struggle under the strain of the clutch playoff moments like we've seen him do in the past? And then Mike D'Antoni, who's had great regular season teams most of his career and never been able to get over the hump to the finals. I think we've seen evidence of some of those things. I mean, Chris Paul, game 1, 6 turnovers, the late turnover, he threw it out of bounds, could have cost him the game. James Harden, I believe, in games 2 and 3 is 10 or 11 for 39 from the field. So he has not been the player he was in the regular season. And then Eric Gordon, who I didn't include in that, earlier spiel, he has not been himself. He's your 3rd leading scorer.
Yes.
He was great in the regular season.
He was one of the reasons why they were special.
Yes. Well, and he has not been special in the playoffs.
Listen, people should never underrate how hard it is for a team up 2-0 that has home court to go on the road in Game 3 and win that game. Because that is the biggest game for your opponent they will play all year long. That's the difference between keeping your season alive and being down 3-0 and the series being over. Those games are always the most difficult games in a series, and the Timberwolves played like it. To the concerns about Harden and Chris Paul, I think they're overstated only to this degree. I think Chris Paul's had 1 bad game in this series, game 1. I think James Harden's had 1 bad game in this series, game 2. That was the 2 for 18. I think, obviously...
Game 3 was 9 for 21.
Right, but that's
and
that's not that far off his season average. He's, I think, 45% for the year, 9 for 20.
Yeah, when you watch the game, he just wasn't clutch. Didn't look like himself during the regular season.
Absolutely, and the Timberwolves were in control of that basketball game. And so, what it comes... Tonight is... the biggest game this unit has ever played together, without any question. Because you go up 3-1, you go back to Houston, complete the gentleman's sweep. There's no problem. You feel great about it with a tough first-round opponent. But you lose tonight. Then all of a sudden you go back to Houston feeling that pressure starting closing in on your neck. And you mentioned Eric Gordon, but it's not just Eric Gordon. Gordon, Ariza, P.J. Tucker in this series, shooting combined 26 shots per game on right at 26%. Combined. Think about that. Like, those are 3 guys they had relied on the entirety of the year. That's been a critical part of this as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because now with them trying to get Ryan Anderson back into the flow, how many minutes do they give him? You can tell that they miss Belamute, right? Is that right?
Belamute, yep.
All right, miss him.
Yeah.
Like, because he is such a utility player. Good offensive player, can guard on the wing, can also switch out on big. So their rotation is a little bit off, but we shouldn't be alarmed. They haven't played a playoff game in Minnesota since 2004. To be able to win the first one with the enthusiasm in that arena, like, we shouldn't just jump into a panic because of that. Like, they could beat any team in the NBA up there. When you don't play that type of playoff game, you have that type of energy. So let's not overreact to game number 3. But this is not the Houston team that we saw win 65 games.
Why?
They haven't been consistent. They haven't put together 3 or 4 quarters in the game. In the first, they could have lost game number 1.
Yep.
All right? They really played well in game number 2, and then they lose in game number 3. So we have enough of a sample size to know that Minnesota is a legitimate opponent for them. They do present some problems, and Minnesota hadn't played just stellar basketball to be able to get to 2-1. Right. So they can improve.
Well, and you made a great point. This is not a typical 8th seed.
No.
They were, when Jimmy Butler was healthy, they were in the 4th spot. They could have got the third spot. And really from 3 to 8, it was so close in the West anyway that, this is a legitimately good team with some great players. So
I think the Rockets are going to be fine. Here is the biggest level of concern that we haven't touched on. Karl Anthony Towns yet to have a big game.
Yep.
Like, if Karl Anthony Towns might have a 35 and 18 game.
That's what I was going to say. If he plays well, you should get concerned in a hurry.
You don't get as much rest going into the New Orleans series. Obviously, New Orleans swept. They'll be more rested than you. It takes away from a little bit of your prep time for your next round. But they're going to close this thing out in 5. If I'm them, I'm bothered. If it's the coaching staff in particular, I'm bothered by the way they came out, the body language. Heck, the first possession, they had a shot clock violation. They had like 6 turnovers in the first 5 or 6 minutes. They just didn't look like they wanted to play. They told themselves, look, don't get complacent. Let's go out and close them out. But the combination of their complacency and San Antonio's pride and execution ended up getting the Spurs a win.
Yeah, to me, it plays a part in the overall confidence of the role players. Because right now, they are not playing good. Draymond Green, this is as bad as I've seen him play offensively since they inserted him into the starting lineup.
Okay.
Iguodala not being able to be dependable, and all those extra minutes. Like, if you're talking about a guy who needs some rest, man, like, I would try to close him out so he can get some rest. He struggled this year a little bit with his knees, so I would be trying to rest him. He's not confident playing offensively. Draymond's not confident. So when Klay couldn't hit a shot, they only had one guy offensively, and that was KD. And KD was trying to rescue them, but the energy in the building, the pride of that organization got them one of these 2 wins. Ginobili, him and Parker playing sensational, especially Manu in the fourth quarter. But I'm concerned about Draymond's afraid to shoot the ball, his inability to be able to score the basketball. And when they're playing off of you, it affects their picking, their cutting.
Absolutely.
And then Iggy. I was concerned about him going into this postseason, and now he's playing these extra minutes because Steph's not there. I believe the totality of it will play a factor if they get to the Western Conference Finals.
I thought earlier watching this game that they didn't come out with a sense of urgency. They felt like they were a little bit kind of going through the motions at times. I mean, they stayed in it. They could have really gotten blown out. But in the end, they were like, all right, we'll give you this one, and we'll come back and finish this off.
Well, third quarter, they woke up. They tried to make the run in the third quarter, and they got it close, but they could never get over the hump.
The Warriors are the best team in basketball in the third quarter. There's no team that responds to halftime and coming out in the third quarter like the Warriors.
You mentioned something about Draymond. It was interesting because they went straight to high pick and roll Kevin Durant.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. They did not play Warriors basketball in the second half at all. It was just Kevin Durant, do your thing. I would have liked, because I've always said when Steph's not there, they play like a different team. I don't mean just the result, but the style.
Yep, the pace.
And they have got to, that style I don't think is going to beat a ton of great teams. So I think they should have worked on the ball movement, player movement without Steph. But then again, nobody had anything going. So they just said, let's ride the hot hand.
But the big issue is, listen, here's the problem with having to play a fifth game. It's 48 more minutes where someone can get hurt. It's 48 more minutes where something can go wrong. It's 48 more minutes where Draymond can accumulate another flagrant foul point. They don't want to have to play a fifth game. To Jenna's point, I think they felt, we've seen them in 2 games prior to this in the series not play well in the first half. The Spurs either have a lead or they're right there. It's close, 6-point game or less, and then the Warriors blow the doors off them in the third quarter. It looked like they were en route to that, and then those Warriors went cold late in the fourth, and the Spurs caught, I don't want to say caught fire, Manu made a couple shots, all of a sudden they win the game. But CeCe's point about Draymond and Iggy having the worst shooting seasons of this run is enormously important in this upcoming series. If in the beginning of the series, Steph isn't there, and you have to play a center because Anthony Davis is out there, if Draymond is not a threat to shoot, and Iggy is not a threat to shoot, and you're playing JaVale McGee, all of a sudden, that's a pretty easily guardable offense. I know you have Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson, but Klay Thompson, as great of a shooter as he is, he's not a guy that's going to break you down off the dribble. So then you've got, those are 2 amazing players. I'm not taking anything away from them. But the offense, it becomes, okay, listen, just make sure JaVale doesn't catch the lob, sag off Draymond, sag off Iggy, so Klay doesn't get these open shots. Like, all of a sudden, you see the Pelicans saying, oh, we can deal with that as long as Steph's not out there. Like, that to me is what yesterday further verified or validated in my mind.
Well, it looks like he's not going to be there for a couple of games to start this series. If you're New Orleans, you got to be thinking, let's get these games when Steph's out.
Of course.
Because without Steph, I would still probably pick the Warriors, but I think New Orleans could beat them.
If you found, hold on, I want to make sure I understand that. If it was said today, Steph is out for the series, you still think you'd pick the Warriors?
Probably in 7.
Do the whole thing where you drop down from Mars. Then what happens?
No, look, New Orleans looks great. They're becoming my favorite team. They're fun to watch.
A lot of people.
The backcourt, Rondo shows up in the play. We talk about guys, Harden and Chris Paul, being better in the regular season. Rondo is better in the playoffs. Drew Holiday is emerging. I heard you guys talking earlier. I wouldn't bring back Boogie. I wouldn't bring back Boogie.
With the Pelicans?
I think they're better without him.
Yeah, look
He's
what they're
a great numbers and all that, but they move the ball better. They play at a faster pace. I think Boogie, look, I don't think he plays winning basketball.
Oh, wow.
He's never been to the playoffs, and I know he wasn't always in great situations, but he takes bad threes. He doesn't do the little intangible things that make a team better. Now, I will say this. They were starting to play really well before Boogie got hurt.
Yes.
So I'll give him that. But Mirotic has just added another element by spreading the floor. I wouldn't do it.
That was
was
Jenna's
my point
Jenna
earlier.
feels so good right now.
No, you have no idea.
You validated Jenna's opinion.
That and the fact that the Warriors came out without a sense of urgency. I could leave the show right now. You could finish it off. I got nothing else.
One last point on the Warriors that I want to give credit here. Durant's been excellent this series. Durant had to, listen, they were going to beat the Spurs almost no matter what, but we talked a lot about how will Durant look without Steph. When we didn't know they were going to be playing the Warriors, we talked about what a disaster it would be for Kevin Durant if they lose in the first round without Steph. Durant has shown up. He's shooting 50% from the floor. He's giving you 29 and 9 a night. Like Clay also had been amazing up until game 4 where he went ice cold. But I do want to give Durant credit because it's critical of him. He was their best player last night, the only guy offensively to do anything for them yesterday afternoon. Deserves credit for it.
Chris, thanks so much for hanging
Kevin
out with
Durant.
us today.
It'll be a while before you get another compliment from Nick Wright. Better eat it whole.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.